All right. Good morning. So this is, I'm here from the Mountain Time Zone in El Paso, as you see on the map here. This is part of joint work with Dennis Pearl and John Weber, and they have a Voices video poster already posted that you can post your comments on. Also, my UTEP colleagues, Dominic Dusa and Steve Haddad. And this is, as Greg has said, this is supported in part by our NSF grant project SMILES. So just to let you know that this work on song is part of our overall larger work on fun in general, and the URL at the top, fun.html, has links to our best papers and lesser papers, so you'll be able to track down more resources and references than this slide or this session can fit. So my trajectory goes a ways back. I became a math major and a songwriter the same year in college, so I guess that was foreshadowing that a decade later I'd start to merge those passions, and it's hard to believe that it's now been a quarter century since that, and to see this conference come to fruition with kindred spirits is just such a delight. So thank you, Greg, and the committee for all your work on this. So the title of this presentation is A Continuum of Interactivity. So why focus on interactiveness in the first place? Why is that a good thing to pursue? You're probably all asking silently. So first of all, it's in a lot of the literature, it's active learning is clearly part of best practices. There's been empirical meta-analysis of 225 studies, which shows that active learning in STEM makes a huge difference. And then just from our own research, such as our most recent paper in the Journal of Statistics Education last year, we had reason to believe that when we set things up so that the songs were positioned to be more interactive and ask the students to sing along or play along or something like that, that made a difference. And so it whetted our curiosity to take that further. A disclaimer, though, that the model I'm presenting right now is still a work in progress, and we do look forward to feedback and hope to learn from you as well during the question and answer session. So let me explain what the continuum of interactivity is. We'll take sort of an annotated tour. Here is sort of like, again, this first draft of this. Our conjectured continuum of interactivity has these sort of steps, and we'll kind of walk through them. But just a note that halfway into preparing my talk, I learned about a new paper by Greg's group, which articulated their own list of conditions with increasing activeness on the part of the role of the students. However, as you can see, there's a reasonable correspondence I was able to see between their list and our list. So great minds think alike, or lesser minds in this case. Let's see, so let's start with the first example, discussing content in existing commercially released songs. In other words, taking regular songs, and by regular I mean songs you hear on the radio that were not written with the purpose of being used in STEM classes, but are songs that are recorded by musicians in the larger world. There's a flowchart usage model that I'll refer you to from Figure 2 of Michael Germru's paper in Journal of Geography. But the high points as a list would basically be to identify lyrics that have the content concept, ascertain the appropriateness, have the students determine if the lyrics are the main focus or just sort of a facet of things of the concept, if the lyrics really describe it or just sort of mention it by throwing in the vocabulary word and moving on. Are the lyrics accurately referring to the content, or are there some errors? That happens sometimes as well. Are the lyrics an analogy? And if so, does it seem to be intended, etc.? So that's one thing. As far as examples, here's some examples that I've used in math and statistics where I found commercially released songs that have words like infinity and random sample and Mobius strip and bell-shaped curve and things like that. Some songs have a concept but don't use the terminology, like Christine Lavin's song, Attractive Stupid People, invokes the concept of regression to the mean, but without using that phrase. If you know of others, please email me. I'm always interested in building up my collection. But of course, we can't count on finding commercially released songs that already have the concept we want in it. So that's why we all end up writing our own. And so that's where we move into the next steps on the continuum. So the next thing, again, the least active of the remaining options, is just to listen to an already recorded sound file of a song. But how do we find those recordings, you're asking? Of course, you can find things on YouTube, but you know, there's so much content there that's a little overwhelming. So it'd be nice if there was a more curated way to find things. Of course, individual STEM songwriters have their own pages, like here's mine. If you just Google Math and Musician, or just my name, because apparently I'm the most famous Larry Lusser in the world, there's my Math and Musician page, and I've got a songs page there that has lyrics and sound files, and plenty of other people have their own. But that's just for math and stat songs. If you're looking for science songs in general, of course, our own Greg Crowther has a database of over 7,000 songs with a very, very thoughtful search interface, as you can see. For statistic songs, Dennis Pearl has set up CauseWeb over a decade ago, and the collection of songs now is up to 144. Wow, that's gross. Almost all of them have sound files, and again, this is part of a larger collection of fun in general. The fun collection has 718 items spanning 10 modalities. You can see the modalities at the bottom of the screenshot there from the drop-down menu, where song is just one of these 10 options, like cartoon, game, joke, magic, poem, etc. So that is where you can find statistic songs. So here's an example. And I'm doing this off screenshots so that we don't have to worry about using the internet in this talk. But suppose you're teaching p-value, and I chose this topic because that's obviously a topic that is not limited to a stats class. There are plenty of social sciences and natural sciences that might talk about p-values. And so you do a search for songs with p-values, you can see in this screenshot, and 12 come up. And suppose the one that you choose happens to be this 10-second jingle called What P-Value Means. And since it's just 10 seconds, I'll just sing it for you. It is key to know what p-value means. It's the chance with the null you obtain data that's at least that extreme. But again, you can just press play, and there's the sound file. You can download the sound file. CauseWeb even allows for people to give ratings to this song, and I'm very proud that this song has a 5 out of 5 star rating. Of course, in full disclosure, it's based on one person, so don't take that too seriously. Let's see. This song also happens to have lesson guidance on the CauseWeb page. As you can see, it describes the song, its learning goal, the target audience, how you might set it up if you're doing it live in class, how you might use it for online self-paced use, how you might follow up after playing the song, how you might assess understanding from the song. Now, this is just an example. We don't have this kind of detail for almost any of the other items at this point. Although if you are interested in helping us bolster that aspect of the collection, Dennis would love to hear from you. So let's now move on to providing accompanying rhythm as performer plays a song live. So that's not as personal as singing along. It's just sort of, you know, banging on your desk while the instructor does something. So you can do this all at your own computers, even though we can't all hear each other right now. Boom, boom, ch, boom, boom, ch, boom, boom, ch. It's an algorithm. And while you're doing that, I can, I'll just sing the first verse of a song of how to graph parabolas. You want to draw a parabola from the general form algebra. Don't despair, complete the square. The x of the vertex comes out there, and we will graph you. We will graph you. So that's a song in the sidebar that they use. This is from Australia's largest newspaper from 2002. And my favorite part about it is where the arrow is pointing to where they say my rendition is bizarrely effective. I just love that. As long as they have the word effective, I don't mind bizarrely at all. So there's an example. Okay, let's move on to displaying the lyric with a recording. And so, like, here's what the p-value song looks like, you know, again, in the CauseWeb interface. But in the Project SMILES project, on the right side of the screenshot, you see what it looks like in the SMILES thing, where key content words are highlighted, and you can see that it even displays one line at a time to sort of like follow the bouncing ball through the lyric. And so that it's a slightly different interface than the regular SMILES website, but it's designed to draw more attention to the content words, especially if they are words that the students have selected or inputted, which leads us up to sing along, where the students fill in blanks in real time. So here's an example of a song. And by the way, I have to give a hat tip to Dane Camp, who has just been a wonderful colleague. He accompanied me with his ukulele at an NCTM conference once, and I learned a lot of things from how he does things, and he does a lot of fill-in-the-blank songs. In fact, I think you'll hear that from his presentation later in Voices. Anyway, here's an example of a song, a quick jingle I wrote to help my high school geometry students recall and distinguish the two main circle formulas, using a tune that, of course, helped all of us learn the alphabet. And every time I've done this in a live audience, people have no problem filling in the blanks. So you can do this at your seats. Take your finger round a jar, circumference equals 2 pi r. For area you multiply r squared by that number, pi. Twinkle, twinkle, you're a star, knowing math will take you far. So I'm sure all of you got all three of those correctly. And so building on that, the next level is to fill in words in advance in response to content-based prompts. And that's what the Project SMILES NSF grant is focused on. So as an example, quick, at your seats, write down the following 4 things for yourself. Write down an exclamation, an adverb, a verb ending in ing, and a plural noun. And then when you've done that, you'll then plug those into when I then show you the punchline of a sentence, where you now get to read your Mad Libs result, inserting those four things into the following script. So if you're watching this recording in the future, when it's archived, you'll be able to pause it and do that with a more amount of time. So this is based on the Mad Libs word game that a lot of us have played as kids, where you have no idea how the inputs are going to be used in the end, and that's what makes it really fun. But it's actually been adapted for serious educational use. There's an article in Teaching Statistics by Trumpauer where he used the Mad Libs approach to teach content, and so things like that gave me the idea to see if we could make songs more interactive than previously. And so our grant the goal was to write and assess interactive songs of high aesthetic and pedagogical quality to maximize learning and engagement. And our grant also has a Voices video poster that is already posted by Dennis and John at this address, and you can go there and listen to it and post your comments right now. And this is just a quick summary of what it has. It lists the titles of our 26 songs. It gives you a walkthrough demo of one of the songs called Regression Roomba. It classifies the song's input prompts, and it talks about songwriting challenges that are specific to songs with inputs. It gives some results from the pilot studies of trying out the intervention before we do a more full-scale randomized experiment this school year. And it gives a bibliography. So that's what you can expect to see in the video poster. And statistics is a nice vehicle for this, because not just because the three of us teach statistics, but it's offered in several departments, taken by students in many disciplines in the natural and social sciences. And I know it's hard to believe because stats is so cool, but a lot of people have statistics anxiety. And so if this is a way to reduce the anxiety and make more room for learning, then it's a great thing to try. And so we have a SMILE song team of internal songwriters. Myself and Dominic both have both stats and music backgrounds, so that was a neat interface. We also have some outside songwriters that have a real variety of backgrounds, again, with expertise in both quantitative content areas as well as in songwriting. I mean, some of these people are CPAs or actuaries or things like that. And of course, you recognize the name Greg Crowther, who we later tapped to chair Voices, and I couldn't have thought of a better choice. So thanks, Greg, for all your work on this. And then we have a commercial music program here at UTAP, and so we've had our music majors help with making the recording sound great. And of course, Bob Carey at Penn State has done amazing work to make our interface portal do what it does. So the video poster has the 26 song titles, but here are the song topics. So you can see at a glance that our song topics really span the gamut of intro stat topics. But they go beyond sort of the more predictable mean versus median things and include some more unusual things that you probably have never heard a song about, like central limit theorem or Simpson's paradox or ethics. There's some very unusual topics here, and we really wanted to have complete coverage. And so I'm really happy with how this turned out. We aligned things to the literature as we went along doing this. So here's an example of what the pre-song prompts look like for Simpson's Paradox. And as you can see, they do sort of follow the Mad Libs style of asking for like a part of speech, like a plural noun, something like that. But other songs didn't quite lend themselves to the more literal Mad Libs part of speech type of thing. So here's an example of the Super Bowl song, where we would just ask them to fill in like some numbers, or select from a pull-down menu, increase or decrease, or for the first item, select their favorite team in the first place, so that the students are making both content connections as well as providing context or examples as they do this. And so some prompts were more open-ended than others, and they each called for different sets of support and hints and feedback and that sort of thing. So, so just for completeness, the most interactive thing would be if students were actually writing entire songs. And I don't have as much to say about that because that goes beyond the scope of the grant, although I'm personally trying this out for the first time in my own class this semester. So after the semester, I'll be able to say more about it. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to share with my students how there are parallels in the creative process between doing math and doing songwriting. And I know I'm not going to go, I'll just flash this so that on the archive recording you can study this more. I have a paper on mathematical lyric writing in Journal of Mathematics and the Arts, where I talk about sort of a difficulty continuum in song forms. So if you're going to have students write, the easiest thing is to have them do a parody or a rap, and then the next most easy thing is a 12-bar blues, and then an AAA form, and AABA, and all that is explained in the article. I talk about the advantages for writing parodies, the tips for doing it. I talk about how lyrics are not the same thing as poetry, that lyrics need more, you got to think about more than just rhyme when you're doing lyrics, because they're things meant to be heard, not read per se. The roles, I'm glad that Nyarso has already talked about how it's not, Donna mentioned this actually, that it's not, songs are not just about recall, but you can also get into conceptual things and use it to reinforce processes of doing STEM. You can connect to history and the real world, and just in general humanize the subject. So there are a lot more roles than just mnemonics for songs, as many of you already know. And so a sample process for writing songs, and I would also ask you to look at the flowchart in the Crowther article I mentioned, that also has a nice way of organizing it. But basically, to sort of borrow some things from that and some things from my own experience, I would say first, pick the STEM word, topic, or concept you're looking to incorporate, and then have the students brainstorm some kind of concept map or word web to see what are the key terms and facts they want to work into the song somewhere, rather than just jumping into trying to make things rhyme. Identify the title or what song is going to be a good vehicle to parody if applicable. Try to write the chorus, because that's like the most central part of the song if the song has a chorus, and then try to identify that the first verse should do this, the second verse should do that. Just sort of find a natural way to group it into 2 or 3 chunks that can each be called a verse. Write those verses, and then if it's not a parody, you've got to come up with original music, and that might be done at the end. This is not a one-size-fits-all. Some people find themselves writing the music first and then the lyrics. I'm more of a lyrics first person, even though the music starts coming into it before I can finish the lyric, and that's okay too. As far as how to get ideas for titles, you can offer your students tips like, look for songs that actually have math terms or numbers already in it, even if it's a pun. For example, several songs have used the 50 ways to leave your lover as a parody vehicle, like 50 ways to sum a series, or 50 ways to work a problem, things like that. Or the more recent hit, All About That Bass. I've seen people use that to have a song about number bases as well as logarithm bases. So there's a lot of options for some words. There's an article you can Google and find this list of unintentionally mathematical songs. There's also a book called The Green Book of Songs by Subject, where you can look up songs that are by a keyword that is either close to a math word or is a math word. Also, these websites, Songset and Songfacts, can be used to find songs that have certain words in them. You can think about common misconceptions students have about a topic. Like, here's 2 songs that are in the Cosweb collection that I wrote, where I sort of take on the character of someone who has the misconception, but by the end of the song loses the misconception. It's kind of a fun way to write it, and it's relatable because you're sort of identifying with the students that, hey, I used to have this misconception too, it's common, so they don't feel bad for having it. So here's some examples of where I would just take a song title. As you see, the first three examples, Mean, The Gambler, and From a Distance, I didn't have to change those titles at all to make those into math songs. Other times I would just use a homonym, like American Pie became American Pie, P-I. And so you can kind of see a little bit of the method behind my madness. So a lot of people don't use student-created songs because they say, well, how do I grade something like that? So here's some suggestions for a rubric. You can have part of the grade be based on aesthetics and creativity. Part of it should be on the accuracy of how they use the content. You should ask them to write a reflection about it, about what they learned about the content and themselves in the process of writing the song, and grade that on the depth of the reflection. And then make them wear a teacher hat and make them say, this song would be used to accomplish a particular educational objective, and make them provide an assessment with that. So by the time they do all that, they will themselves have learned quite a bit. They may not know this, but you can let them know that there are contests to enter songs in. For example, in math, there's the National Museum of Mathematics contest. In statistics, there's the A-Musing contest that cost sponsors, or just within your classroom, have a little informal contest and the students can vote, have the audience favorite, get a bonus point, whatever. There's articles on technology and assessment resources like Gary Grossman. You're going to hear from him later in Voices. They have a lot of things like that. A project also could just be song-based without necessarily writing a song, like history teachers use Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire This Way, where they make the students track down all the cultural references in every single line of the song. I got this unsolicited email from an algebra teacher in Illinois where she says that before Pi Day, which of course is March 14th, 314 every year, she shares the lyrics of my song American Pie with her students, and then they spend a week researching topics that connect to the lyric and turn it into a project. So that was really neat to hear that she was doing that. I wrote an article about just the American Pie song itself, actually. And so in that article, the appendix 1 has the lyric of the song, and then appendix 2 has questions that could be given to the class for explorations in order of appearance in the lyric. And so not every song do I have anything near this detailed, but again, just as proof of concept, I wanted to kind of show what it might look like. And so here's some things we're wondering about the model, since as I said, I wanted feedback on this, and I'm down to my last minute here. So the Crowther model seems to focus on what students are writing, whereas the model that I have with input from Dennis and John is focusing not just on what students are doing from the writing angle, but also what action in terms of performing they may be doing in displaying or presenting the song. And I'm now thinking that these may need to be treated as two independent dimensions. Perhaps something like here's a 5-point scale of interactiveness in lyric writing on the left, but then on the right, a 5-point scale of increasing interactiveness in performing, going from just listening to giving a solo performance of his song. This is something that I'm definitely open to feedback on. And here are the email addresses of the three of us for the SMILES project, as well as reminding you of the fun.html thing you can get all of our references and resources and links to our papers, which are all available without like a password or subscription. So that's nice. In honor of the Voices debut, I actually wrote an anthem, which I'm not going to sing now because I know time is short, but on the archive version, you can press pause and sing along with this, and I won't even know if you're standing for this anthem, which is fine. So I will now go to a slide that has all 3 presentations from this panel with our names, our talk titles, and our email addresses, so that you can follow up with all of us afterwards. But now we get to have 15 or 17 minutes, I guess, of live Q&A, which I'm really looking forward to. So thank you for your attention.